We recently had a customer email in a hilarious testimonial, or I'm not sure what it is. I'll just read it to you. Please tell the team that the podcast is amazing, even with Jared. The podcast is informative, entertaining, and downright fun. I would love to hear more about Jeff's journey as an entrepreneur. Details about his story would be very informative and motivating, especially for a younger audience. I have two sons who need to hear how hard work, steadfastness, risk taking, and strong leadership is needed to be successful in life. I believe Jeff's story can provide that. Many may think that Jeff and Liam simply ride all day, but I know there's a lot of hard work behind the scenes to allow Jared to actually ride all day. As an organizational design professional, I would also like to hear about Jeff's management and leadership approach, which keeps him up at night, what keeps him up at night, where he wished his organization was better, and how he attracts and retains top talent like Liam. In all honesty, if I were stuck at a baseball game for 9 innings, I think I would rather sit next to Jared the whole time. I think I would laugh a lot more with him, not at him. Thanks for everything, Matt from Portland, Oregon. So we got this, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. And I just said, let's have this gentleman on the MTB podcast and interview me and ask whatever questions he wants. So that's what this video is going to be and all about. It's this guy, Matt, super smart, awesome dude, asked me a ton of questions about my past, present, and future, Worldwide Cyclery, Kettle, Trail One, all the stuff we do in our business. And yeah, a bit of a different take, but a whole bunch of history about us and who we are and myself. And hopefully you enjoy it. Here we go.
All right. So I grew up in the 80s, and I can tell you about my first bike, but you'd be bored out of your mind. So everybody has a story, right, about how they started mountain biking. For you and I, mountain biking came about while we were still alive. My boys, it came around after. So what was your transition to mountain bike? How did you find mountain biking?
Yeah, I rode BMX and motocross a ton as a kid. I mean, growing up in Southern California, you're kind of just immersed in extreme sports. So skate, surf, snowboard, and BMX and motocross mixed in there were the main ones that I did. And mountain biking, I was 13. A friend of mine, him and his dad had mountain bikes, and they just looked like this crazy creation of a BMX bike and a dirt bike. And we went out and rode them once. He just rode his dad's bike and I rode his, and I had so much fun. I just thought this is the coolest sport and the most fun thing to do because it was this awesome. It was BMX bike and a dirt bike combined into one. And I just fell in love with it right away when I was 13. And then from there, I just, kept riding with him, and he would ride his dad's and I would ride his. And then, after about, I don't know, 6 months or so, I just saved every penny I could to buy my first mountain bike. And I did get I believe it was a KHS XC204 was the name of it. Some, 4-inch travel cross country. It was copper. It looked cool. Had a red spring on the rear shock. I think it was probably about $1,200. And yeah, I loved it, man. That was a super fun bike. And then it just kind of, took it from there.
KHS, that used to be a great brand, right? And when I was
used to be
just a killer brand. And I remember I always wanted a Y frame, right? I always wanted those Trek Y frames. That was my big thing. It's like, could I save enough money to get one of those Trek Y frames? And then I assume you had like all the lizard skins and stuff that I had on my mountain bike also back in the day.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because it was, KHS, lizard skins, WTB was still super relevant. That was the tires that were on that bike.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most stuff I remember from it. Of course, there was Truvative cranks on it, Avid brakes, SRAM drivetrain. So some of the stuff is similar. RockShox suspension, at least up front. I can't remember what that shock was. That shock might have been a Romic shock or something. I don't remember which fork it was. Yeah, I can't remember at this point. That was quite some years ago.
So not to age you, what year was this? Like what was this? What time frame was this? Like 90s, late 90s, early 2000s?
Well, I was born in late 89. I'm 35 now, so I was 13 when I got that first bike. So yeah, somewhere in like those early aughts, I guess they call them.
Yeah, that's good that you didn't have a mountain bike that just had rigid fork, right? That's what I grew up on. That's what we started on, watching those old Gary Fisher videos.
Yeah.
All right, so let's fast forward. This is the most intriguing part for me, Jeff, honestly, is I think there's a lot of people out there that have passions like whether it's mountain biking or snow skiing or basketball or whatever it is that would love to do that for their career. How did you get this idea for Worldwide Cyclery? I mean, you're hitting the trails, skate parks, and then suddenly you're like, you know what? I'm going to do this. How did that come about?
Yeah, the way that happened, a couple things. I had always, as a kid and as a teenager, just had sort of a knack and interest in business. And I didn't really, even recognize it or notice it. Neither of my parents were entrepreneurs or into business by any means. My dad's a medical malpractice lawyer that defends doctors being sued, and he lives in a very different world than mountain bikes and business. And yeah, I was always kind of wheeling and dealing and enjoyed it. I started custom painting BMX bikes just with spray paint, but I got really good at it, and I would disassemble the whole thing and use electrical tape to make cool designs on BMX frames. And then I started doing it just for myself and then selling them to friends and friends of friends. And I was doing that as a teenager, and I had a little eBay consignment business where I was selling random stuff I could find in my garage, and then I would knock on all the neighbors' doors and try and see if they had anything worth value that I could list on eBay and sell it. And so I was doing that stuff just, I don't even really know why, because I thought it was fun and entertaining when I was a teenager. And looking back on it, clearly that was kind of a knack for entrepreneurship and business that, I now realize, but at the time just was doing it because it was fun. And then I started working at a local bike shop in Newbury Park, where we're still at and where I still live, Newbury Park, California.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really cool local shop called Michael's Bicycles, not to be confused with Mike's Bikes.
Yeah, Mike's, yeah,
in Northern
yeah,
California.
yeah.
So this was just an individually owned shop, still around, awesome little place. And I worked as a mechanic and just did the random stuff around the shop, right? I changed tubes, cleaned bikes, and then slowly climbed up the ranks. But I probably worked there until I was 19 or 20. And throughout those handful of years, I just learned a lot about, how he operated his small bike shop and the industry. I learned all the products. I love the products. I was racing bikes a ton. I started getting sponsored because I was doing quite well as an amateur downhill and enduro racer as a teenager. And I just learned a ton about the industry and the sport and racing in the sport and being immersed in it and all the products and the brands, the distributors, who buys what, how they buy it. I learned all that stuff in the industry really well. So once I figured all that out, I then was having a lot of stuff that I would get from sponsors that I would no longer need for the next season. So I would start selling it. I would just list stuff on eBay, list stuff on, Pink Bike Buy Sell forums. And that's kind of the original way I saw this opportunity and started figuring things out, because I realized, it's similar to selling anything on eBay. You just make a good high quality product listing, reply to people's questions quickly and promptly and concisely, and you could sell stuff. And then you build a feedback profile. And so I started doing that sort of on the side of working on the shop and, going to high school. And
So this is all happening when you're 15, 16, 17, 18 type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was a busy dude, I guess. So I was always doing something, and luckily in those years I wasn't really distracted by phones. It's a different world now for teenagers, but I wasn't really distracted by too much. I was just riding bikes a ton, racing bikes, building bikes, selling bikes, and having fun with that. So yeah, that was the kind of the way I figured out the industry and learned all about it.
What did your parents think of this? Like when you were a teenager and early 20s, what were your parents' thoughts? Your dad's like, "What are you doing? Go to college, do something else," or were they like, "Go, Jeff, go. You got this."
You know what's funny is I have absolutely incredible parents that I'm so grateful for, and they were so supportive of anything I wanted to do. I don't think they ever once said you should do this or you should consider that. That the word "should" wasn't even in their vocabulary. They just I just did whatever I wanted, and they treated me with respect and always cared and loved me and supported me and said, "Yeah, that's cool. Go ahead. You want us to drive you to a race? Sure, we'll drive you." Like, they were just so nice and so supportive and were never judgmental at all, and really just let me be who I was, and it led me to just living a very authentic childhood and teenage years. And I look back on that with such gratitude now, but at the time, as a teenager, you just, oh yeah, cool. I have cool parents.
I'd say one thing I learned from what you just said is what I get from is you just were a sponge, right? You started your job, and whether you were sweeping at the bike shop or at a race or talking to vendors, you were just bringing it all in, right? As much as you could. The passion just brought that. That's where you got your knowledge. That's what I'm picking up from this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was just infinitely curious and interested. And so I was always asking questions and learning and reading and paying attention.
Your parents weren't in the industry, obviously. So was there a mentor? Was there anyone who said, "Jeff, let me take you on my wing here and show you some more ropes that you may not be able to do on your own when you're young"? Is there a mentor in your life? for this?
No, not really. I can definitely say that, Michael of Michael's Bicycles, I was working for him as a teenager. I learned quite a bit from him.
Hmm.
He had a great, successful little small business bike shop that, man, I think he started that shop in 1978 or something like that. It had been there a long, it
Oh,
was
the
around
Greg
before
Greg
I was
LeMond
born.
years, right? That's
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. It was, he started that shop before I was born.
yeah.
But he operated his business in a very different fashion than I ended up as I became an adult. It was just different mentality. He wasn't trying to build anything huge or
Hmm.
miraculous. He just wanted to run an awesome, cool little local bike shop and support his family. And that was kind of all he cared about. And then he wasn't a maniacal, sophisticated businessman by any stretch of the imagination, but he was a good, kind guy. He liked everyone that walked into the door. He enjoyed helping people. He
Mm,
enjoyed selling people bikes that he believed were vehicles for fun.
yeah.
And I could say that was, very, very inspiring and interesting to see as a kid, watching his passion and excitement sort of.
And I get that from when I listen to your podcast or see other things is that your team and you, what you exude is, I want you guys to have fun. And let me get you the best stuff that you can possibly have to have fun and not have
Yeah,
a bad
totally.
day. And I see that in the trail one. I see that in all the stuff you guys are doing. And I think that's a great mentality. So let's fast forward. You have young Jeff. He's 20 something. I don't know, living at home, doing whatever he's doing, selling stuff on eBay. So you're like, you know what? I'm going to do something bigger. I'm going to build something. What was the moment you're like, I'm doing it. I'm going in both feet. I'm going to start a company.
Yeah, so I was 20 years old when I really thought, there's something here that could be a real, bigger business. And funny enough, I pitched it to Michael. I said, hey, I've been selling stuff on the side, all the sponsorship goods or any other stuff, and on eBay and on various ways online, and I want to sort of take it to the next level and really get into it and open up a website. And
Yeah.
he just wasn't a tech savvy guy. He was a bit older at the time, and he just said, that's cool, kid, but I don't really care about the internet. and
Yeah.
and so I said, okay, cool. Well, in that case, Mike, I'm gonna open up a shop and just focus and specialize on high end mountain bikes and be predominantly online and try and curate all the best stuff in the mountain bike world that's on the high end segment and sell it online and focus on boutique brands and whatnot. And he said, yeah, that sounds cool, man. Have fun. You know?
So where was your first warehouse? Was it a garage? Your parent was a storage unit? Like, where'd you start in that? Where'd you hang your shingle? I guess you could
Yeah.
say.
So the way the bike industry works is you do need a physical brick and mortar location in order to just be taken seriously and get accounts with brands and
Mhm.
distributors and be able to acquire things at wholesale prices and sort of become a player in the space. So there's a bit of a barrier to entry with that rule in the industry, and which I think is good because it makes sure that people that are coming to play as legitimate bike
Yeah.
shops and retailers are meaning it. So yeah, I pitched this idea to my dad to co-sign on a lease for me it was $1,200 a month for a small. It was about 1,000 square feet in Newbury Park, and it was in flex space, so it wasn't in like traditional retail space. It was sort of half industrial, half retail, and so yeah, he said, yeah, sure, I'll co-sign. And I told him, I said, look, I can afford it. I'm going to try and sell enough bike parts that I can pay the lease with that
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try and
that
sell enough.
profit.
Sell enough.
But I, at the same time, I'd asked Michael. I said, "Hey, Michael, I would like to still work here part time in the evenings, and I'm going to try and start this small online shop, and I'm going to do that in the mornings." And he said, "Yeah, okay, cool, whatever."
Huh.
And so essentially, what I realized was from the income I had working in the evenings at Michael's Bicycles, I could pay that lease. Ideally, I wouldn't have to pay it with that money, but I could. And then I was renting a room just with a bunch of other buddies and at a house in town, and I think I was $600 a month or something for
Yeah.
a kind of a measly room, sharing a bathroom with four other dudes, and
Eating a lot of mac
and
and cheese. Just whatever you guys can
yeah,
find. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And I thought, what, if it really doesn't pan out, I'll just sleep in my 4Runner. I had a Toyota 4Runner, and I lay the seats flat. I slept in it all the time camping. I was like, I'll just sleep in that if I need to. And it was a 1 year lease, so I thought, okay, I got 1 year. I'll see if I can make it work in 1 year. My dad's willing to co-sign on it, because they're not going to lease it to a 21-year-old kid
Yeah.
who technically didn't. I didn't totally graduate high school. I did the first 2 years, then I went to a charter school, and then I just tested out doing this thing called the California High School Proficiency Exam.
Mhm.
So I barely squeaked by through high school, and yeah, now I'm trying to go lease this small building. So my dad said, sure, he's going to co-sign. My mom had just gotten, I don't know what it was, a small chunk of money from her parents had passed away, my grandparents, and so she said she would loan me $20,000 at a 10% simple interest rate.
So
And I
you,
had to,
that's your parent, 10% interest rate for your parents.
yeah,
Wow.
that was actually my idea. I
Oh,
had no, yeah, that
yeah.
was my idea, and it wasn't because I thought that was, I had no idea I didn't know what the Federal Reserve's rates were, what bank, I didn't know any of that. It seemed reasonable off the top of my head. Mom, can I borrow $20,000 and I'll pay you back $22,000 in a year or two? And that's what we wrote down. And she said sure.
So that year, the year happens, right? And you're working through that year. What was the point where you're like, this is going to work? This is going to work. This is happening.
Yeah, I would say it was probably 8 months in. I was getting quite a bit of traction, in terms of just volume of selling stuff. And at that time, it was mostly, I was selling most of the stuff just through emails and through Pink Bike Buy Sell and even Craigslist and eBay. And I didn't have the website live yet, so I was just selling this stuff various ways. And I'd started, just prior to that, I'd started meeting a lot of people that I was selling these things to in South America and in all these other places around the world. And it really made me realize, wow, mountain biking is very global. And at that time, so it was 2011 when I started the business, the USD was really low against a basket of global currencies, mostly because the US was still kind of, making its way out of that big financial recession in 2008, 2009. So a lot of the rest of the world wanted to buy all these mountain bike parts from the US. And I saw that as an opportunity because we have the best selection here. And because of the way that the foreign exchange rates worked, it was actually reasonable to buy and ship the stuff all over the world. So that's actually where the name Worldwide Cyclery came from. The idea was to be much more targeted international. And that's how it was for the first several years. A lot of the stuff that we were selling, a niche that I was sort of filling was I was curating all this really good stuff in the mountain bike world. And I became really good at understanding sort of international trade laws and regulations and international shipping.
And shipping, I was going to say, that's the shipping,
and how to
right?
do all that. Yeah, and it's hard, and a lot of people struggle with it. There's a lot of mountain bikers all over the world that wanted to buy things from the U.S. but weren't sure how to import it, how to deal with all that and the shipping. And so I got really good at all that sort of stuff, and that was kind of the genesis of why it was called Worldwide Cyclery, which is, the name is a mouthful, and I wish I would have named it something different. But at the time, 21, trying to sell bike parts internationally, that's what I came up with.
But it sounds like that was your niche. That was kind of the niche that made you grow, is that you spent time saying, listen, there's a need international. I'm going to learn the international trade. I'm going to learn about international shipping. I'm going to learn about tariffs, all those type of things. And then you provided that, right? And that was kind of set you apart from all those other retail sites out there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, because most of them weren't really focused on it. And funny enough, if you rewind, it's hard to remember, but you rewind back to 2011, 2012, 2013, there wasn't a lot of big online shops. There was, of course, Jensen's been there for ages.
Nash Bar, maybe,
and it's quite a few now that are defunct. Nash Bar, Supergo, which slightly turned into Performance, Price Point, which went defunct. There wasn't that many. It was a pretty small, non-competitive market because e-commerce was still just sort of a budding thing at that point. It had gotten more popular for books and stuff, and Amazon still was not even really that much of a household name at that point. So e-commerce was just new. So there was a lot more opportunity if you knew how to do it and could figure it out back then.
So I want to make a statement. Just give me your response, and then I want to move on to kind of how Worldwide Cyclery works today. But one thing that I've been told before is that listening to your story, there sounds like there's some luck of timing.
Yeah,
but luck is only used when you work super hard to get it. And I found that what you just said, I worked nights, I worked during the day, I Worldwide Cyclery, trying to get it up, worked nights to pay for the lien and for the shop. The luck came because you worked hard. Is that a true statement, or do you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think there's always some level of what you could call luck in any entrepreneurial journey, and ones that become successful, some way luck and timing are in the favor and the tailwinds there. But none of that luck and none of those tailwinds goes anywhere unless you're extremely dedicated.
Yeah.
And I was, that the first few years of the business, I sacrificed a ton of, that was, I mean, if most people can remember what they were doing between the ages of 21 and 23, it was mostly partying and goofing off in college and stuff. And I was the opposite. I was actually, most of the time, for quite some time, I was sleeping 9 to 5. That was what I decided was going to be the most effective sleep schedule. I was going to sleep 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. And then I was going to work on Worldwide Cyclery from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then from 2 p.m., I would literally ride my bike over to Michael's Bicycles, 15 minutes, and I'd work 2:15 to 7 p.m. And then at 7 p.m., I'd go home and eat dinner and then be asleep by 9 p.m. So that was my schedule for nearly 2 to 3 years. And I just dedicated an immense amount of effort and time into, not only working extremely hard, but doing my best to work on the right things.
Yeah.
And then also being cautious and understanding, that I had backup plans. Okay, if I can't make this work, can I still make money at Michael's? If I can't make this work, and I need to cut my expenses, can I sleep in my Forerunner? I had all these things figured out and sort of thought through, and that was a big piece of the puzzle, is just making sure I knew what was going on at all times. And yeah, timing was important in terms of the industry, but and the luck there. But yeah, it wasn't to say I didn't work an obscene amount during those years, and still do many times nowadays as well.
So today, Worldwide Cyclery, how many employees does Worldwide Cyclery have on your
so
payroll?
We're just over 30 at the moment.
Over 30.
3 stores.
Do you remember the first time you actually felt like a boss?
I don't know. I don't know if I still do. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely don't really enjoy the term boss because it carries such a strange connotation that I, in pretty much no way, shape, or form, fit into.
Yeah.
It's probably when I think probably about 4 years in, when we had close to 10 people, and I started bumping up into a few just personality things. People receive feedback and criticism, some differently than others, and dealing with some of that stuff. I think that was the first time where I started realizing, oh wow, I'm in a leadership role, and it was probably, I can't put a specific moment on it, but yeah, I am in a certain position where the stuff that I say holds a different level of weight than what a coworker says to somebody, right? So as much as I can hang out and very friendly and or friends with a lot of our staff, I still don't have the ability to kind of just use some of the words that you might yank your coworker's chain and stuff like that, and that's kind of off limits for me. As much as it feels like, oh, I could do that. These guys, we're all friends together. We're all friends together, but people still listen to my words differently, which is sometimes frustrating. But
it is. But that's that's the burden of leadership. Sometimes leadership can be a little lonely at times.
Yeah.
I hear you. But the other part is I think from what you're telling me, you take your role very seriously, because you have 30 people relying on you to make a living for them and to
100%.
give them, to help their families. I mean, that's just something that as a leader, if you don't take seriously, then you're not a great leader, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's something I take extremely seriously, and I'm always putting a huge focus on making sure we're running a good, sustainable, healthy business for the long run. And that is not always easy to do, and it's not always easy to educate people on, especially in the age of social media, when people see and listen to all sorts of random, totally factually incorrect things about business and money. And the reality is very different in the world of business than it's the way it's portrayed in headlines and social media. So I'm always kind of trying to educate people on that too.
Yeah, and that is very true. And it's a rare situation indeed where you don't have to work very hard and you actually make it. Every successful person I know
pretty much doesn't
exist.
exist.
It doesn't exist. I fully agree with that. And whatever track someone takes, hard work is always in the recipe.
Mm-hmm.
It's never not.
Yeah, it really is. And focus. And, the biggest thing I always tell people nowadays is, hard work is a huge part of it, but part of hard work is focus. And I think focus is one of the most underrated skills ever, because so many people just live in these distracted worlds that they lack persistence, and they lack the ability to ignore social media, even lack the ability to just stop looking at their phone constantly. And that's a huge hindrance until their ability to be productive and effective at anything they want to do.
I fully agree. I don't even have a Facebook page. I actually steal my wife's Facebook page every once in a while and pretend to be her. But
It's an
yeah,
interesting strategy you
it
got there.
it is. So no one can find me. I talk like I'm her. She hates it. But yeah, social media is just not a thing. And if I may just put a plug, that's what's great about activities such as mountain biking or outdoor sports or anything that you can get your teenagers into that takes a tremendous amount of time outside
Yeah.
of the home and creates a passion for them.
Yeah.
That is to me one of the greatest things to reduce screen time among
Yeah, I
teenagers.
totally agree. I mean, I certainly, have built a life that I'm really proud of and really enjoy. And it all came from a passion of business and mountain biking
Mhm.
and being outside. And that's a huge thing. That was a great positive influence for me in my life. And always want to share that. It's a big reason we really enjoy and care about what Nike is doing and want to be big supporters of that, because they're trying to get the youth on bikes and interested into a really good, healthy, fun sport.
I totally agree. And I do want to talk about Nike, but I think what I want to know is what is it like to work at Worldwide Cyclery today? And what does it feel like to work at Worldwide Cyclery? So if I had about, let's say, 10 of your employees and I put them on a panel, I said, guys, what are the most important values? What's the most important thing at Worldwide Cyclery? What would they say to me?
Yeah, I think, people really do use the word fun a lot, and that's a big thing for me, because I just genuinely believe life should be lived with the most amount of fun, and that's an important thing to put a big emphasis on.
Yeah.
When it comes to when the rubber hits the road, the thing I'm always constantly saying is balancing fun and focus. So
Mm.
that's the thing that I think really matters, and I genuinely believe that you can have a really good work environment that can be full of fun and also full of focus, and there's this beautiful balance. And that's one of those things that you bake into the culture over years and years, and people come in and really enjoy and appreciate and really see and become self-policing to some extent. But fun and focus, I think, is a big piece of the puzzle, because we don't just goof off all day, but we certainly goof off at some points in the day, every day, guaranteed.
Yeah.
So we're always making sure to be very focused and productive and working hard, but we're also still always finding time to make jokes and laugh and enjoy each other's company at the same time. So that's a big part of the culture that I care about, because you have to focus and work hard and be diligent and disciplined to just have any business succeed these days. And that cannot be forgotten. But at the same time, you should be able to do it and know how to do it while laughing simultaneously, in my opinion.
My favorite coworkers or people I work with is those that take their job seriously, but they don't take themselves seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. That yes,
Yeah,
the
it's a good
job
way
is
to put it.
important, but you're just another person. Let's just have a little fun while we're here. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I love people like that. So speaking of that, speaking of finding those right people that can do that balance, labor. I can't even imagine the labor market in California, especially where you're at. The cost of living, all those type of things that you have to deal with. How do you get employees and retain them in your business? Given that you are in California, it's an expensive place to live, hard to get labor. What do you do to retain? Why do people stay with you?
Yeah, well, luckily it's not just only California, because we have three stores. So
Oh, that's right.
California is just a third of it, and then there's Nevada just north of Reno, and then Pennsylvania, which is just west of Philadelphia. So yeah, the whole crew is split up between those three stores, and California is the toughest. I will absolutely say, in terms of cost of living and doing business and legal things and all of
Mhm.
that. Um, for us, when it comes to finding good people, that I'll probably say is where I feel extremely lucky, and I've felt lucky over the years in finding just really good, genuine, awesome people. It's easier nowadays because we've got much more of a social presence, and people reading our emails, listening to our podcast,
Yeah.
watching YouTube. So there's definitely people now that when we say we want to hire, people already know who we are and know
Yeah.
what we're all about, and that's a huge win. Well, obviously wasn't always like that, and it's we've just gotten really lucky, honestly, at finding really good people that have come into the business and love the company culture, love what the company stands for and what it's doing, and love the work environment, and do a great job. So that's tough, and that's a never ending battle for any business to build and craft a company culture that people feel emotionally safe in and have fun in,
Yeah.
and can still be productive in. That's always a challenge. But I will say that we have such little turnover, because when you come in and you fit the culture and you enjoy the culture, and you're productive, you're probably going to be around a really long time, and you'll probably realize that this is a really, really rare business that you would ever work for. And I think the older the older ones of our staff know that more than the younger ones.
Yeah.
The younger ones don't have enough experience to realize, like, oh, this is a cool job, but I'm sure working at Jamba Juice is a cool job too. It's like, okay, go try
Try
that
it
and
out.
see if you're right. So people learn in different ways, and that's everyone's individual career path, right? But we do have a really unique culture that people hop into, and they're incredibly grateful for, and they recognize how unique it is and how special it is, and how rare it is, and how hard it is to find another culture like that. So I think that's a big key for us when it comes to retention, is actually just being a better place to work that people enjoy to be at.
Yeah, and I can hear it, in your leadership style, which is when you hire someone or come across anyone, if you look for the good in them and what they do well and go after that good, it's amazing how well people perform and want to be a part of something
Yeah.
versus just doing a job. And that sounds like when you find somebody, you're like, I'm so lucky I found you. I'm so lucky I have you. People resonate with that. You
Yeah.
remind me, you have those two other shops, right? You have California, you have Nevada, and you have Pennsylvania. How has
Mm-hmm.
that changed? How has your leadership or business changed trying to manage a company across the country now, which different time zones, different people, they rarely see you. How have you had to change your approach when you're not there anymore?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that is one of those things that I think a lot of small business owners get stumped on. They don't know how their business would operate without them,
Mm-hmm.
let alone any location would operate without them. And when I got to that point, I had similar feelings of that limitation. And then I also looked at it and thought, if Howard Schultz thought that, there would be one Starbucks, not several thousand. It's just not true.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you have this fundamental belief that people are out to get you, and bad, and you're the only one that can operate your business, then frankly, A, you're wrong, and B, that's just a bad mentality to have.
And a terrible
So,
life, right? Just a terrible
yeah,
way of going about
absolutely,
life. Yeah.
absolutely. So for me, it was the thought of, just believed I could do it. I just believed that there was good people out there that could be great general managers, and great team players in shops, and it didn't matter if I was there. And yeah, I've proven that theory right. We've got incredible people that work in all three of the shops that I have full trust and faith in, and do a fantastic job. So yeah, there's always little bits of challenging communication barriers there, and coaching of I've tried to help make sure people know how to communicate with people, and that's always ongoing.
Yeah.
There's always that. The guys in the front shop are yelling at the guys in the back, and vice versa, and it's people pointing fingers, and so you have to put out those little fires here and there then, but people get better at understanding that, and forcing people to make phone calls, which nobody likes to make phone calls anymore, and they just want to send text messages all day.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
no, just you have to hear the tone of voice. You
Yeah.
have to call this person.
Yeah. And
So
that's the best
little
part about
things.
like Teams and all these other Zooms meetings. What I like hearing is I come from the kind of the same thing. I'd rather trust everyone and be burned every once in a while
Yeah,
than
totally.
trust no one and be alone
Yeah,
and
agreed.
unsuccessful.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who get to that moment that they can't grow past themselves. They
Yeah.
are the company. They are their organization. And I just applaud you for doing that. I mean, opening up stores across the country and saying, I'm going to trust something that is 3 time zones away, that it's going to run. That takes leadership and takes risk. And that's what you're doing. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, it's definitely a piece of the puzzle, and you have to believe in people, and believe in your skill set to find the right people, and take the risk on those people, and not everything always pans out, but that's fine. Then you solve that problem and move on and try again. Just part of the fun game.
Was there any moment in the early days of Worldwide Cyclery where you thought this isn't going to work? Like, I don't think this is going to work. I've got to do something else. Or did it always have a pretty good trajectory?
It always had a pretty good trajectory. I would say that there was, the funny thing is that I think, once the business scaled and got a little bit more notoriety, people had kind of thought that was always my plan.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought, man, you took this huge risk and built this company. And that really wasn't what I was trying to do. I was pretty much just trying to make $60,000 a year for myself. I'm not even kidding.
And if you made the
That was
60,000, you're there. You won.
Yeah,
You did
that
it.
was
You
it.
did
I didn't think I was going to have.
I can pay for utilities and I can go mountain biking.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my thought process, I was thinking so much smaller in the early days. I just want to try and sell enough parts and get this thing spinning that I can make $60,000 a year, and that was all I was focused on and all I thought about. And that was it. It's as simple as that. And then I hired the first employee, and things started going better. And then I thought, oh man, maybe we can grow this even more. And then maybe if we grow it a little bit more at the sacrifice of some marketing spend, then we could have something more. I just figured all this stuff out.
Yeah.
It was totally. I certainly didn't have a big term vision for the thing. I didn't to where it is now by any means. I didn't have that in the early days. I developed that throughout the course of the first handful of years. And in the first handful of years, I didn't have any, I had general business acumen that was just sort of from working at a bike shop and selling bikes as kids, things like that. But I didn't go to any formal business school or anything. I just learned absolutely everything on the internet. I just watched YouTube videos. I read tons of books.
Really?
I read tons of stuff online. I would just be a machine of sitting there on Google. I wish I had things like ChatGPT, but I would just be a machine of Google and trying to understand and learn business better. And you learn so much of that as you go. So yeah, a lot of the all that stuff was learned on the fly, and so it just kind of transpired.
Can I not to get a little personal, but so I went to business school. I got my MBA from a top 25 MBA school, and they teach you everything, finances, how to balance your books, all that stuff, marketing spend, all those things. But I have to say, what you did is so much more impressive, to be honest with you. I went to MBA school because I needed a job. I wanted to get a job, and I wanted to be able to have a family. What I love what I'm hearing, though, and for anyone who's, I think, thinking about what do I do next with my life, it is about that focus and that sponge. You got to be focused and want to bring everything that you can possibly learn all the time. And coming from a guy who went to business school, I am far more impressed with what you accomplished than even what I've accomplished or my peers have accomplished by going to these universities. And I think you should be really proud of that. And I can just sense that from you. And it probably permeates your business, I would say, also just your own people. Having that pull up yourself out the bootstraps and let's go.
Yeah, well, thank you. Appreciate the kind words. And I think that is a funny thing about business is it is a big, massive, complex ball of wax that can be contorted in any way that you want to shape it. And it's not that easy. I definitely use a lot of sports analogies. I think there's a reason that 3% of the population owns successful businesses. It's challenging. It's hard. It takes a lot of focus and discipline and effort and interest and intrigue in the game. And it is very similar to the people that make it as far as the NFL and are successful there. It's a small breed, right? And you really have to love the game beyond belief and be really interested in it all the time and kind of eat, sleep, and breathe it to some extent. And also hopefully have some natural talent at it. Whether that how you got that, I don't know how that even happens. Who knows? But it is fun. Business is incredible, right? I mean, you can sit there and learn about it all day and still have a different opinion on how things should work versus other people. But what's to me so interesting and fun about it is there's nothing more quantifiable ever. That's it, right? You get out there and you compete in business, and if you're right, you'll be able to continue playing, and if you're wrong, you'll have no money and it's over. That's pretty fun to me.
So do you still keep your hands in the books? You still watch the accounting, the finances, and everything?
Yeah, totally.
It's because I have this picture, not in my mind, but someone could picture, here's Jeff on his mountain bike, and there's some guy in some suits in the office telling you what to do. No, Jeff, you cannot do that today. But that's not the case. You are watching the finances. No. You are the CFO, if you will, of the company, trying to make sure where spend goes and how investments happen and all that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm definitely, deep in the weeds on all that stuff, and always have been and likely always will be. We've got some really talented people that work on our team these days. But at the end of the day, I'm still I'm still crafting all of the strategy and making all of the big decisions and paying attention to every dollar and where everything's going and where every investment's being put, because I love it, I enjoy it, and and it's just that is what I do for sure. I could certainly see how if you watch some of our YouTube videos, you'd think I was some weird off the wall CEO that somehow got lucky and met some guy in a suit, but that's not the case at all.
Met some lawyer that protects doctors. He helped me out. One of the things that I always thought about when I listened to the podcast is I heard that, right? I would hear you drop little subtle pieces of the business in there. And that's what intrigued me about talking to you about this. When you interviewed the CEO of SRAM, I noticed in your questions that I actually said to my son, I said, Jeff knows his stuff. Like, he knows his business. He is not just the guy who just happened to have the idea and his name on the business. So I just want to tell you, very impressive. And my son was very impressed by that too. He's like, cool. Dad, he works really hard. I'm like, yeah, he works very hard. All right. We're out of time. I know we're going to look on. Let me ask just two more questions. One, I do want to hear about, you do interact with NICA, and I know you do interact with youth. When you do talk to youth, and if you do have a chance to talk to youth, what's your go-to? What do you talk to youth, or what are some of the questions that surprise you from youth that you meet when they say, hey, you're Jeff? What are some of the things you come across when you're talking to 15, 16, 17-year-olds?
Yeah, I don't have as much time as I probably should, just being out there at NICA races and talking to the youth. When I went to the World Cup in West Virginia in Snowshoe, that was a few years ago now. I did meet a ton of sort of aspiring professional mountain bikers and junior professionals and all that sort of stuff, and that was awesome. And it is funny. I don't know, man. I don't think there's any common threads. Everybody asks different things. Some ask questions about YouTube. Some ask questions. Funny enough, some people will ask questions about just random bike fitment things, which it's fine. I can answer that question. I probably have a little more value to provide.
On this? Should it be a 15.7? I just need to know, Jeff. You should know this.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a little bit all over the place when it comes to that sort of stuff, but I do always encourage, I always encourage people to have fun. And I think that's a big part of the sport and a big part of why you should ride bikes is to have fun.
Yeah.
And I don't get a lot of questions in regards to business or entrepreneurship from the youth in the mountain bike world. No, they're just more interested in having fun and cool things about bikes and stuff, and that's cool because that's the stuff I was thinking about back then too. So,
but the good news, there's some more Jeffs out there. I'm sure you're going to get some competition as you age from some mountain bikers out there.
Man. Yeah. I would love to see more youth kind of get into the business of the sport and enjoy it, because man, there's always constant evolution in the sport and tons of opportunity. So, all
right, one quick question, quick answer: if you weren't CEO and you could do any job with Worldwide Cyclery, what would you do? Besides Jared's job, what would you do?
Oh, that kind of is what I would do as Jared's job. I would want to just sit there and do marketing stuff all day and make funny videos. I think I would enjoy just making goofball videos and writing funny emails and funny ad copy all day. That's probably what I would be effective at and just laugh doing all day. So that I would love to, and I still do some of that, but I can't do that full time, unfortunately.
So is Jared the brains behind all that copy that you guys write in the website and the the emails and stuff? Is he?
It's a combination. Yeah, it's a combination of him and I. Yeah, a lot of it. I wrote a lot of that copy myself years and years ago, and Jared, obviously, him and I have a pretty similar sense of humor in many ways. So we work on that stuff together all the time. And and then a couple other people behind the scenes that are really good at it as well. So
I'd say the first time I bought something off Worldwide Cyclery, when I got the email that says Glorious Matthew, I thought, wow, that's a great company right there. I love that. All right. So the last thing is listen, you have 30 employees. Worldwide Cyclery is grown to a respectful business. You're actually at a point, I would think, in your size where philanthropical things would not really make sense to do right now. You're probably still in a growth mode and your capital needs to be put back into the business, but you're not. You guys are giving back, which honestly is a rare thing at a company your size at this moment in your inflection point. Why is that so important to you at this time to give back philanthropically? And what are some of those things you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that businesses should operate and support the industry that they're in, and just do good by nature. I think that's an important piece of business. I don't think that business should exist just to make money.
Hmm.
Obviously, plenty of big Fortune 500 companies do, but I'm just frankly not interested in that. I want to run a business that people actually love to interact with and love to work with, and then also is able to do some good things as well on the side.
Yeah.
And for us, that's been supporting NICA and youth mountain biking all over the nation. That's been a big piece of the puzzle to me that I think is an important thing to support, especially because of what a great life that I'm proud of that I've built. That's been totally based off of the fact that I just happened to be introduced to mountain biking and fell in love with it
Hmm.
when I was a teenager. So yeah, supporting NICA is a huge one for me. And the other one there that we execute on a ton with Trail One is supporting trail networks and trail
Yeah.
building. I think that's another huge thing. That's a big piece of the puzzle, because nature would eat back those trails that we all love and ride if there weren't really good dedicated trail builders to go out there and maintain, fix, and even build new ones. So yeah, those are two important things that I really am you know passionate about and want to make sure that our companies are always supporting. And it's not always easy, because like you said, our business is has kind of always been on a bit of a growth rate here, and we've got it's just also challenging, right? We live in a
Yeah.
dynamic environment, especially with this crazy roller coaster that happened during the pandemic and all
Hmm.
and all that. It's it's not always easy to give back, but at the same time, I'm focused on making sure I can operate as efficiently as possible, so we can do things like that, such as pay competitive rates and to our staff, and have a good work environment, and make sure we're giving back to things that we're passionate about. So easier said than done in a
Yeah.
small business these days. And I definitely always defend small business owners in many ways, because I think a lot of people, I always get a little agitated when people kind of rag on either their boss or the business they work for if it's a small business,
Yeah.
because it's so much harder than people think, and so different than it is to be working in a cog in the wheel of a big Fortune 500 company versus working and operating and running a small business and being a part of that. So
I agree.
yeah, that's something that yeah. Anyways, tangent there, but
No,
anyways,
no, that's a good and
it's
just
part
take
of
a
it.
tangent on the other side. I just want to say to everyone, if you ride your trails and you come across someone working on the trail, you need to get off your bike and give them a hug, because that
Yeah,
is hard work,
absolutely.
man. That is
Yeah, it
hard
is.
work. And a
Yeah.
lot of us take a lot of trails for granted. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's just so important. It's you ride all these trails, and then you go, who built these?
Built these, yeah. This
Who's
is
maintaining this?
it's
Well,
like is it elves at night? Like who's coming out
yeah.
and doing this? You know.
Yeah, that's a funny. People always say mountain biking is an expensive sport, and I agree. The mountain bikes are very expensive,
Yeah.
but for the most part, all these trails are here for free.
Free. For free.
So the next time you spend $300 on your Aspen lift ticket to ski, just remember that you can ride all this great single track for $0.
For $0.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's amazing. Yeah, they're the unsung heroes of mountain biking, and
yeah, totally.
I'm so glad you guys support them. That is so important. All right, we're coming up on an hour, so I do have some quick hit questions for you.
Let's hear
You
'em.
ready? All right, here we go. So these are either or, right? Either or. All right, Whistler or Moab?
Always Whistler, full of jumps and fun and way more enjoyment. Moab is a disaster of techie rocks, which is also cool, but I'd prefer to just ride huge jumps and big berms all day.
Yeah, I fully agree. I always feel like Moab is the 1990s of mountain biking,
Yeah,
in my
a
opinion.
little bit. Yeah,
And I've ridden a lot of
yeah,
Moab. I agree.
yeah.
Ice cream or popcorn?
Ice cream,
Mm.
definitely.
All right, I put this one special. Disneyland or Magic Mountain? I think I already know the answer.
Yeah,
Yeah, Disney.
Disneyland. I'm a huge fan of Disney theme parks. They're a
All right,
ton of fun.
29 or 27.5?
As much as I could give you the politician answer and say, well, they're different in different ways for different people for different use cases. I haven't ridden a 27.5 bike in several years. I'm always on 29. So
Yeah, I like that. All right, this is the hardest one. Indiana Jones or Han Solo?
Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
I like them both, but no, I'm a way bigger
No.
Indiana Jones fan as a kid and still than Star Wars. But I like them both.
Best movie ever made, Raiders Lost
Yeah,
Ark, in my opinion.
yeah, so
Absolutely.
good.
All right, last one. Neil Diamond or John Denver? You have to choose one. I mean, these are
Yeah.
greats, right? I mean, but you have to choose one.
These are great. Well, if I'm being honest, I haven't really listened to either of them recently, but I would probably go Neil Diamond just because as a kid, my mom loved Neil Diamond and would play that. So I'd probably at least recognize some of those tunes. And yeah, that's the reason I'd go with Neil Diamond. John, the funny thing about John Denver, the only thing I can remember about John Denver is that scene from Dumb and Dumber.
Oh yeah.
He
Oh
mentions
yeah.
John Denver,
That's
right?
just,
Yeah.
oh geez, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
The
one of his
Rockies
best
are
lines.
flat. Yeah.
That's one of the best lines. I would say Dumb and Dumber is also one of my favorite movies of all
Yeah,
time.
same
That
here.
and Napoleon Dynamite, great movies.
Yeah, they're so good.
Jeff, is there anything you'd want to share or anything you want to say as we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is that a couple things. One, if you're passionate about learning anything and everything about business in general, there's certainly a size of business. If you can work in a business, so most small businesses are under $1 million or $2 million in revenue, and then you have your massive businesses over 100 million plus, the big Fortune 500s,
Sure.
all those guys.
Yeah.
If you can get into a business that's sort of in between that, $5 and $50 million revenue phase, generally that ends up being about 20 to 100 employees, depending on the industry. If you can work in a business like that and work closely with the person who founded it, anybody who's founded a multi-million dollar business is going to be unbelievably chocked full of all this business knowledge and interesting stuff to hear. So if you want to learn and see how the game's really played, that's the way to go. Because if you go to a small business, you're not going to learn a ton. You might just learn how to not run a business.
Yeah. Yes.
And if you go to a huge business, you'll probably never interact with the CEO or any of the C levels, and you'll never really get to see how the pie is made. But if you're in that sort of mid-sized business, you'll learn a ton. So I think that's an important piece that I would just mention out there. And then the other thing too is also when it comes to podcasts for us, the MTB podcast, we field a bunch of questions. Many of them are great. Almost all of them are great, but also don't hesitate to ask the occasional business question, because I love fielding those when they come in rather than telling you about the tires I'm riding.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for this time. It was so enlightening. And, I listen to podcasts, and to be honest, I just have a different lens now of what you did, what you accomplished, the hard work you put in. And this is very insightful. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate you, taking our offer and, being willing to do this.